Hi, in this video, I'm going to introduce the EIGRP packet types. So EIGRP has 5 different types of packets for sending EIGRP messages. They have hellos, which are used to discover other EIGRP routers on the network and also maintain those adjacencies. Acknowledgements, used to acknowledge the receipt of not any EIGRP packet, but any reliable EIGRP packet, such as updates. Updates convey routing information. Queries are used to get specific information from a neighboring router, and reply is used to respond to the query. We'll talk more about queries and replies when we talk about dual in another video. Okay, hello packets. So EIGRP hello packets are used to discover and form adjacencies. Okay, they're multicasted either over IPv4 or IPv6, whichever one is for the appropriate EIGRP routing protocol. These hello packets are sent unreliably, meaning there's no acknowledgement sent in return. Okay? And they're just used, like it says, to discover, to see if there is another router out there on the other end of the link that is enabled for EIGRP, and also to maintain those adjacencies. Okay, so before any EIGRP packets, as far as any update packets with routing information can be exchanged, EIGRP must first discover its neighbors. And again, it uses this hello protocol to establish these adjacencies. Okay. Hello packets are sent on regular intervals. The router assumes that as long as it's receiving hello packets from its neighbor on these regular intervals, that neighbor is still a viable neighbor. So the interval actually depends on the interface's bandwidth. On low bandwidth links, and low bandwidth links are those at T1, 1.544 megabits or slower. The hellos are sent every 60 seconds. On links higher than T1, the hello messages are sent every 5 seconds. So we have something called a hold time. So these hellos are sent periodically, either every 60 seconds or every 5 seconds. 5 seconds is obviously much more common nowadays. The hold time is the maximum amount of time the router should wait to receive the next hello before declaring the neighbor as unreachable. So, for example, the default hold time is 3 times a hello second. So if we have a 5-second hello interval, if a router doesn't hear from that neighbor within 15 seconds, it will declare that neighbor as down. Okay? And if that hold time does expire, EIG declares the route as down. It actually will declare any of the routes learned from that neighbor as down. It will search for a new path in the topology table. We'll talk more about that when we get to dual. So we'll look in this topology table to see if there's another loop-free backup path. If not, then it will have to send out what's called an EIGRP query message to see if another neighbor knows about how to get to that route or routes. We'll get to that later when we talk about dual. Okay, so EIGRP updates are sent as triggered updates. So that means they're sent when there is a change in the topology. Okay. So those updates are sent, and then they are sent reliably, which means an acknowledgement is required to be sent by the neighbor. Okay. So update packets, these contain only the routing information needed, only whatever the change is. Sent only to the routers that require it. And like I said, uses reliable delivery. That means that an acknowledgement is required. Okay. Acknowledgement packets are required for reliable RTP packets, and that includes updates, queries and replies. And they're sent as a unicast directly back to the source of the update query or the reply. So we'll talk more about queries and reply when we get into dual, but query and replies are sent when there isn't a what we call a feasible successor. We'll get there later, but it's when there isn't another loop-free backup path in the topology table that it can use right away. So the router will send out a query to see if another router has a path, a valid path to that down network. Okay. So these are sent, queries and replies sent as reliable delivery, means they require an acknowledgement to be returned. And again, we'll talk much more about queries and replies when we get into dual in a later video.